here in this room, and most of us are from Benzie County, a few from Manistee and from Leelanau, but we represent about 1% of the people that are going to be voting in the August primary. Just the people in this room could be the difference, the 1% difference between Tucker getting 51% or getting 49%, or between Jack Bergman getting 35% and winning or getting 33%. Right here in this room, I guess we're the 1%. We make the difference right here in tiny little Benzie County. So it is very important that we stay informed about the people that want to represent us, and this August primary is going to be absolutely crucial for us and for Benzie County. I would like to have Mr. Tucker speak to us for a few minutes about why he would like to be sheriff. Go there and stand by your sign here, brother. And then when you're finished, make a nice segue into introducing our man of the hour. Everyone, Mr. Tucker.
For those of you that don't know me, my name's Dave Tucker. 27 years in law enforcement. Retired from the sheriff's office in June of last year, and decided to throw my name in the hat for sheriff because of some of the issues they're having up there currently, up on the hill. Some things that I would like to see changed: 24-hour road patrol. We don't have 24-hour road patrol in Benzie County. Restore the jail budget. That's been slashed by $220,000. They've lost 4 corrections officers.
That's correct.
Corrections officer right here. 4 corrections officers recently, which is direct correlation to the safety of the inmates and the citizens of the county. Professionalism. We need to restore professionalism back in the sheriff's office. I don't know if you've seen some of the articles in the paper, but it seems like the sheriff's office is in the paper too much. So, onward and upward. I'm born and raised Traverse City, lived in Lake Camp for the last 27 years. My family has been in Lake Camp since the early 1900s. Raised my family in this county, and I think I'm the best candidate for sheriff. So.
Amen.
One other thing that I'll be implementing is community policing program. We used to have a citizens advisory board that represented citizens of the county that would come to the sheriff's office and meet once a month, talk about current events, what's happening in their area of the county, and try to work on some problems that they're experiencing in their neck of the woods. 1 month with the current sheriff in office, that program went away. We can't do our job effectively without the citizens coming forward and tell us what's going on in their community. So that's one thing that will be implemented. Those on my brochure, those aren't necessarily placed in order of importance, just the 4 things that need to be worked on that I feel are the most important things that need to be worked on in the county. So I'll be here tonight after Jack talks. If you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them. I'll stay here as late as questions want to keep on coming, okay? So without further ado, Jack Bergman.
This is exciting, and I'm going to tell you why, folks. One of my main jobs that I worked going through college was making pizza. This is before Domino's or Little Caesars or any of the chains. This is in a little farm down in southern Minnesota where the best pizzas never left the kitchen. Because we were waiting on our fellow college students and a few folks that came in from town. But the bottom line is, I never had more fun than to interact with the folks that I met in a place like this. Having you be here tonight says to me that we are, with the Bergman for Congress campaign, on the right track with our mission to become the next congressman from the 1st District. Now, there are brochures around here. I'm not going to sit here and tell you about my bio because you already heard Michael very articulately talk about what's important, and the importance is showing up to vote. The importance is showing up to vote that, as Thomas Jefferson would have said, as an informed citizen. Know your candidates, know what they stand for, factor in what they have done already in life that would prepare them for this next step to become a United States representative in Washington, D.C. A couple of times this evening, I was talking with a couple of you about issues that are clearly state level issues. They're not federal level issues. But why that's important is you can control them locally. But if I get my way as a congressman, we're going to reduce the size of the federal government.
Amen.
We're going to get it out of the businesses it has no business being in. And as an example, does the Department of Education educate? No. Okay, so let's get rid of it. Let's bring those processes and responsibilities that are necessary for us to survive and thrive back into the appropriate levels of the government, whether it be state or county or below. We, as American citizens, sometimes, unless you travel internationally, don't realize how good we have it. Okay? We take too much for granted, but by taking things for granted, we can mislead ourselves on what's important and what we really need to do to continue to function as a society. You know, because you live in these communities, you know your neighbors, you know your communities, you know what's being done right, and you know what's being done wrong. Make sure that you, as active constituents, active voters, and active members of your town or township or wherever, get involved. This country was founded by people who got involved. And the way they got involved was they were willing to sacrifice it all because they knew what historically had happened. They did not want to have them happen to them and their descendants going forward. We're broke, folks. At the rate we're spending money in this country, we're looking at our grandkids and saying, whatever we might pass along to them is going to be eaten up in the federal debt. So if we don't get control of the purse strings, if we don't start by actually balancing a budget, let's put it this way, putting together a budget through a balanced budget amendment. Anybody here know what zero-based budgeting is? Okay. Bottom line is, for those of you who don't, it basically forces every entity to look at all of its processes and what it does, and then build their budget. What it forces them to really do is say, what are we doing today that we should continue to do? What are we not doing today that we need to start doing? But where the money goes down the drain is when we keep doing things that have no bearing on what we should be, doing in the future. Stop that stuff. It drains money. It drains precious resources. Balance the budget, zero-based budgeting. Use the constitutional framework to make sure that the decisions that we make are the best ones for the greater good. That means going to Washington, D.C., in my case. By the way, I'm not going there to become part of a fraternity. This is not another step in my career ladder. I'm already a member of the finest fraternity in the United States, and I would suggest to you in the world, the United States military.
Right.
I'm a little partial as a Marine, but then again, my dad was in the Navy, so he squared me away early on to the error of my ways. But he supported me every bit of the way, and I've already talked to gentlemen here. We were together in July '72 in Vietnam. So the connections that you make at these events or at other events is a source of pride. Think about how good our country can be if everybody felt that sense of pride. So I can tell you about a lot of things that really have no bearing on what the what we could discuss tonight. So I'm gonna stop talking here, with the exception to say, number one, we're gonna throw it open for question and answer, so I'll answer your questions here. But vote on August the 2nd. So many of us in this room, whether you swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution, whether you swear an oath to serve and protect, and the different levels of law enforcement, we serve every day. I served for 40 years in a Marine Corps uniform, and now I view this as a transition of service to my country in a suit. So having said that, I'm so glad you're here. This is exciting because this motivates me, because you provide us hope through your active participation. What I will do when I go to Washington, D.C., is provide leadership and experience for those other congressmen and congresswomen who may not have enough experience in life to tell party politics the way it has become. That's the wrong answer going forward. So, thank you.
Warren Buffett had an idea about the debt. He said, when above a certain percentage, 3% of the overall debt, Congress would without pay until all is all resolved. How would you view that?
If you knew how many hours I put in as a Marine Corps reservist without pay, and any other guardsman and reservist here, no problem. I'm in this, I'll work for free. I'll go back, well, what did our country's founding fathers do? They didn't draw a paycheck going to Washington, D.C. In fact, George Washington refused to accept payment. I'm there on a mission.
How would you view Puerto Rico's problems or Illinois or California's difficulties with money?
How would I view it?
Yeah, how would you approach it as a congressman? Because they're gonna come to D.C. for a bailout, flat out.
The short answer is we're done with the bailout. We saw what happened after 2008.
The way our debt works, as long as we have a Federal Reserve, we will never, ever pay it off. What do you feel about the idea to
Audit the Fed. I would not make any decisions until the audit was complete, because transparency, put a little sunshine on this and let's see what's there, because when we have manipulation of money at all different levels, the outcome is bad. But audit the Fed.
Amen.
What's your position on this $15 an hour minimum wage? It'll bankrupt us. So the economy will go downhill.
These are the words of a motel owner over in Alpena. We had this discussion about 3 months ago. She said, you know what? I'm a business owner. I'm gonna pay my good people more than $15 an hour, and I'm gonna pay the people that aren't performing less than $15 an hour. But she said, again, I'm a business person. If I offer a wage, let's say it's 15 and nobody shows up, what do? I'm a business owner. I'm gonna offer more because I need workers. Let the private sector control the wages, the prices, and all of that, because the private sector creates jobs. They design products, create jobs. It's the supply chain, and all of those jobs and the economic flow through that will create a stable society in the small towns where people have enough money to raise a family, can spend their money in the local area, provide that social cohesion that I would suggest to you our country needs badly, because of the fact we have too many folks that are don't understand what it's like to be a member, not only of a family, but of a society. Whether it be a big town, little town, it's healthy to be a good member.
Have you heard of the Center for Self-Governance?
Center for Self-Governance.
May I talk about it a minute? I just discovered it a week ago or so. They teach applied civics. In other words, how to actually be effective after you understand how our government should operate, how to effectively speak to local, state, and federal representatives. It started in answer to Ben Franklin's comment a woman asked him, what have you given us a republic if you can keep it? The question was, how do you keep the republic? And this, if any of you are interested in this, they have 5 levels of classes, and they are apparently very effective when people go through these classes.
Before you leave, I'd like to get that information and get it down, because I'm a lifelong learner, folks. You know, that's the way I was raised in a family where we had all the love and the commensurate amount of discipline that went with that. We had all the money we needed, we just didn't need very much, okay? By the way, anybody here know the secondary use for a burned out light bulb? I asked this 3 times. It's when my mother put one in her sewing kit. And when I came in as a little kid, she darned the sock. That's right. She put my sock over it with the hole in it, and she darned the sock.
I use water bottles.
Okay, but anyway, but the point is, back to the basics of civics and understanding. If you understand how things should work, understanding your responsibilities as a citizen, that's a long way towards the next best, next good step.
Could I just say one thing? I'm wanting to sponsor one of these not sponsor one, but have one at my home. I happen to live up in Glen Arbor, and it only takes 5 people to commit themselves, and I believe it's just a Saturday.
Are you offering pizza?
If I could get,
I'm sure we can come up with the pizza.
if that's what it takes, yeah.
So do they bring an instructor in, or how does it
Yes,
work?
for 5 people, you need to pay us like $25, I think it is. That's the first level of class, and yes, they'll fly an instructor in to do it. Please talk to me afterwards, I'd be very interested in having a class.
This is what the founding fathers envisioned. People getting together, learning, discussing difficult issues from different points of view, understanding the basics, the framework of what you've agreed to discuss, not agreeing at the front end, but coming out with a better understanding of what it is that allows you to flourish. That's a great idea. Good. Sir.
Number 5.
Number 5, Marine.
My stubbornness came out in Marine Corps, so I want you to understand that.
You didn't have it before going in?
No.
David, the Marine Corps rejected you again.
And it's number 5 for the rest of you means always faithful. So, I'm gonna test you tonight. You know, politicians, military men, we take an oath to protect the Constitution. And you stated on your flyer here. And I believe strongly in the Constitution. And I believe strongly that the men of Benghazi, for example, have a right to the truth, to due process of law. And there was in Benghazi, I don't know how many you know it, there's three SEALs got killed, and Ambassador Stevens. That's all covered up most of the time. You get nothing out of those committees that they have at Capitol Hill. But there was an incident that is much worse than Benghazi. How many people here know about the USS Liberty? Raise your hands if you know. USS Liberty. Very few people. And I believe in the Constitution, the 5th and the 14th Amendment gives you the right to due process. It says so in the Constitution. The USS Liberty was attacked. 70% of the crew was killed or wounded. While it was under attack, the 2 flights, where maybe you know Admiral Geist and Admiral Tully, were on the aircraft carriers in Americana. They sent off the aircraft to help these men. They were recalled in midair. And after they were recalled, the torpedo boats came on this ship and sunk it. And they tried to sink it. They killed another 25 men, wounded another in the 50s war. Then the ship was sent with a 40-foot hole to Malta instead of Crete, listing 15 degrees, body parts are floating around. And our congressmen and senators in Congress today, they don't want to tackle the subject. And the reason is that the Israelis attacked it in the 1967 war. I don't know how much you know about it. Admiral Moore, I don't know if you ever heard of Admiral Moore, was the 7th Chairman of the Chief of Staff. him and General Davis, he was second in command of the United States Marine Corps. Admiral Starring was the highest legal officer in the United States Navy. And then there was Ambassador Atkins. They formed a Moore Commission because Congress refused to do it. And they said that the attack was deliberate, including the man that investigated, which was Captain Ward Boston. I have a personal friend that was on that ship. The only surviving Marine, his name is Bryce Lockwood. There's two Marines, Jack Raper and Raymerfeller, Corporal Raymerfeller, that were killed. Now, Bryce and I have talked about this many, many times. I know the story much as well as he does. He was awarded the Silver Star. And my question for you is this, is when you get your office, the APEC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee, is going to come to you and they're going to ask you, are you going to be loyal to Israel? Which I don't have any problems with. The problem what I have with is, are you going to be a little more loyal to Israel than you are to the men of the USS Liberty? That's the question I'd like you to answer. If you get in office, who are we going to be loyal to? Are we going to follow the Constitution, the 5th and the 14th Amendment? Are we going to be loyal to our Marines? Or are we going to be strictly loyal to Israel, which is, no matter what people do, or what they say, you know, if you question it, they're called an anti-Semite, and everything is swept under the rug, and people just do not support the crew of the USS Liberty. And the reason nobody knows here about it is because the government has hidden it so well. And that was their purpose, is to hide it so well. Thank you.
You've given me my first mission.
Good.
Anything else? Sir?
Mission 2,
Okay.
the Veterans Administration. How will we deal with it?
Where would you like me to start? Let me just.
I'd like it to go the same way as the Board of Education.
There is, I have a lot of detail and a lot of history in dealing with the VA, but only from the standpoint of transitioning records, when it doesn't make a difference which service it is. But in my case, it was the Marine Corps. When a young Marine, or soldier, sailor, or airman, or Coast Guard, you know, whomever, leaves active service, their records, both personnel and medical, transfer through the system, out of the Department of Defense, eventually end up, depending on their commitment. Now I'm starting to build a watch on you, and I apologize, because again, I have so much detail and history in this subject. I'll get to the end game here. If we don't continue to do two things. Number one, streamline is not a strong enough word, because that means you assume the process that you already have is working, but create the process that allows those records, both personnel and medical, to flow through the system, so when that vet gets back into the care outside of the Department of Defense, that they're, whatever they're dealing with at that time isn't immediately taken up and care continued, okay? Or, in the case of someone not needing care, that their records are such that when they do need care and they go into a VA clinic, or they go into a VA, a Veteran Service office somewhere, that you pull it up and go, here you are, right in the system, let's start from here. There was, until 2007, there was really no handoff. It was kind of like the box went here, and then hopefully somebody from the other department came and picked it up. Okay? That's one side. Let's talk about the healthcare side. Would you agree that quality of healthcare is number one? Okay. Accessibility of healthcare would be second, and affordability, regardless of the healthcare, is third. Because no matter how, if it's free and it's not any good, it's not worth it. Okay. So why wouldn't, now the VA has the VA choice card, but why wouldn't you as a veteran be able to have the same primary care doctor as your spouse? You go to the same hospital, you go to the, you just, it's Munson, or it's, McLaren, or it's wherever it happens to be. You don't have to go to Saginaw. I mean, we have a VA clinic here. But the bottom line is you make it accessible, and then where it branches off, where that veteran has an issue that is more specific to VA capabilities. I'll give you 3 areas. 1, prosthetics. We have young veterans now surviving. Normally they would have wounds that have been taking their lives. Now with the body armor and everything, they're surviving. But prosthetics, we are the leader as the United States military in some of the prosthetic development. That should be very robust within the Veterans Administration. 2, traumatic brain injury. With these explosions comes traumatic brain injury. There are 4 centers of excellence in the VA: Palo Alto, California, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Richmond, Virginia, and Tampa, Florida. Okay, they started now 14 years ago because we knew what was happening. So they have developed some procedures and rehabilitative procedures within that specific area that, again, I would suggest you should stay within the confines of the VA, because we have the data that shows what works and what doesn't work. And 3rd is general behavioral health. Okay, not TBI, but general behavioral health. Post-traumatic stress, we can all experience it, and it comes in different forms. But I would suggest to you that veterans, talking to veterans about those issues that are challenging for them, those are those 3 areas that the VA should remain strong in. Other than that, we don't need big VA hospitals. Maybe it's right, depending on where you live. If there's one there, okay, keep it going. But basically put the VA in a position where it actually serves the veterans and does it in a timely manner. That's a long answer. But because I have a lot of history in it already, I know what the priorities, I believe, need to be within the Veterans Affairs Committee in Congress, and then within the Veterans Affairs Department. But there's a lot of business being done. Remember I was talking about how to use material-based budgeting, stop doing the things you don't need to do? VA's got more than their share of that.
The VA should be held accountable for what they're doing. And why should we have to pay bonuses for bonehead decisions that are made? That's gotta stop.
That's another touchy subject. Well, touchy for some people, not touchy for me. I don't understand this bonus system in the federal government.
I don't either.
That's what
I know we're
I'm
supposed to
trying to get
do
at.
a good job.
Corruption, that's what it is.
That's right. So, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Ain't hard to figure out. Corruption.
I've been in 3 VA places this week. I just got back from saying, Saturday evening at 6:05. Day before yesterday, I was in Traverse City. Monday, I was in Great Grave.
Okay.
They're all telling me the same thing. My pain is in my head. I don't have pain. But I've suffered for 60 years since I've been out of the VA. And I've got it.
God, we're probably gonna have some VA-specific forums, I know, going forward here before the 2nd of August. Yeah, so we may just do that will allow us to talk about those very specific things.
I can add something to that. You know, my good friend Dr. Wagner, I'm probably people know him here.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the greatest people. He was the chief flight surgeon on the USS Yorktown. And he volunteers to drive veterans. And in the Disabled Veteran Van Program, Ford Motor Company gives you a bus for $15,000, puts the stickers on it. And he'll drive. He doesn't do it anymore now, but he did. He's over 80 now. 12 hours a day, going to Ann Arbor and to Grand Rapids, and then wait for the people, and then come back. It's crazy. They could be going up to Traverse City, you know.
It's
crazy.
Sir.
I can second that. I do the same thing, and in fact, George got me in a program 2 years ago. And as many times as I take a guy up to Traverse City, you get a blood draw. You could get a blood draw from Manistee. You could get a blood draw at West Shore Hospital. And I will say, though, the hospital in Ann Arbor is probably the best one they've got, one of the best. Because right next door is this huge hospital that says University of Michigan on it, and doctors from the University of Michigan serve in the VA hospital. So some of the guys that really have serious problems, you know, get
Well,
taken care of.
and that's one of those things that it makes sense, where you have VA hospitals that, and they're put there because there are large medical, medical schools right next to them, so those residents can get the training, especially when it comes to veterans facilities. I'm not saying shut it all down. What makes sense for the area that you're in? Because when you look at First District of Michigan, what do we got? We got the VA in Kingsford, and then the closest thing we've got to a full-blown hospital here is Saginaw. Right? Am I missing something? Okay.
And Saginaw is a good hospital. Is that correct?
I've heard one more, and then.
I just wonder what you're gonna do when you get to Washington and you're hit with the bathroom situation.
Well, I'm going to the men's room.
I guess you don't want this young lady in the restroom with me.
Last week I was in Lansing and he's on the State Board of Education, Dr. Richard Ziele. He said, this whole bathroom fiasco is just to mislead the public. The core issue is hiring gay teachers. Now, you're from Michigan. We had 11 states this week, sue the feds. It wasn't Michigan. And you've got to realize that the champion of the State Board of Education, Dr. John Austin, it's a Democrat, it's controlled by Democrats. And the core issue is hiring gay teachers. What are you gonna do?
Well, I'm gonna get the federal government out of education, number one. It's a
Okay.
state issue.
Right.
Let the states, get the federal government out of the businesses that they're not supposed to be in. Does the Department of Energy produce energy? No.
Hot air.
Who we got for Army vets here? Okay, should the Army be in the big dirigible balloon business? Probably not, okay? Should the Marine Corps dance for a living? Probably not. We have all we can do to keep our feet going forward and back, not side to side. The point is, design your agencies to actually function in a society that needs them for the future. And, this is, number one, we're not gonna solve this overnight. When I made the comment about zero-based budgeting, it's not a one-year deal. It'll take at least a decade. At least a decade to get that even close.
Jack's gonna stick around. You're not going anywhere, right?
I'm not going anywhere.
Jack's sticking around, Dave's sticking around, Penny?
Can I ask a fast question? The NRA, do you support the right to carry keeping the government effect out of my right to carry? Or do you?
You're gonna have to rephrase. I'm not sure exactly what you asked me, because I can answer it in an honest way and then still get it wrong.
All right, yeah, I'm sorry.
Answer
The anti-gunners are after our guns.
The key word in gun control is control.
Thank you.
Okay,
Do you,
get it out of the Second Amendment stands as it is. The federal government does not need to be into gun control. They need.
thank you. That's fine.
I'm a Marine. I don't have guns, I have weapons. And I respect them and I know how to use them. And I teach the grandkids. I haven't gotten too far yet because they're not old enough, but I have already taught some of them how to sharpen an axe.
Jack is sticking around, Dave is sticking around on your